Oh, hey, hey, hey. I was just looking at my hair. It's a little bit wild today, which makes me very happy, actually. Hi, 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 hi. I just had the coolest experience. Now, I'm sitting in a parking lot. I'm running very far behind today because, oh, long story, but I've had a pain in my neck for a while, and sometimes it gets up here and gives me headaches. And so last night I took something that was a little stronger. That's not even true. It's not like a narcotic or anything, but it lasted like a full 12 hours, and I just couldn't wake up until noon. So I'm really running behind, and I apologize. Hi, I'm Mojo. Welcome to the Mojo Show. Oh my gosh, so much good stuff going on. I have to tell you what just happened. So my father died. What was it? It's been 3 months now. 3 months yesterday, I guess. And so there's this woman who works at the Starbucks that I go to, and I noticed one day she had on a necklace that I thought was the Deathly Hallows symbol from Harry Potter. And so I asked her about it. I said, "Oh, are you a Harry Potter fan?" She's like, "Oh, no, it's for something else." And then I found out that it's this symbol for AA. It's a triangle with a circle in it, and each side of the triangle is like service, unity, and something. I don't know. And so the other day, I was inspired. I had found, oh gosh, okay, I'm trying not to make this too long a story because we want to get into today's topic. It's going to be cool. Yeah, and if you don't know me, I'm Mojo Medium. Find me on the web at mojomedium.com. So I've got a lot of cool stuff coming up for you. Let me stop the car and crack the windows. Oh, that's perfect timing. A nasty old motorcycle going by. So the other day, I had, okay, so if you're in Alcoholics Anonymous, you get what they call chips, little coins for each milestone. So you get like a little aluminum chip for 24 hours and one for like, I don't know, 3 days. And then the first time you get a brass one, it's a month, and then 6 months, and then a year. And then every year on your AA birthday, you get a new chip. And like I said, they call them chips. They're about the size of a Kennedy half dollar. And so my dad was in AA for 43 years. He was sober for 43 years since I was 13 years old. And so he had a bunch of chips. And apparently, when you go from one, you might go to your birthday celebration at your regular AA club, and you get a chip there, and then you might go to another club and you get another chip there. So Daddy had multiples of several years of his sobriety. And so I gave all of those chips to my dad's sponsor in AA for him to hand out to people to say, "Oh, it's this is your 23rd year. Well, here's a chip that belonged to Dick K," right? Dick K, because they don't use last names. So have this chip, So I gave those to his sponsor, and I was very, very glad to do that. And I thought that was the right thing to do, to let it go to somebody who's in AA and it's meaningful to them. So I know this lady at Starbucks is in AA. And the other day, I had found some more chips at my dad's house. Was looking for something else, and I found some more chips. Not a lot, but just a few. So the other day, I thought, I'm going to give one of those chips to this lady, and I'll just call her Ann. I'm going to give a chip to Ann and write her a note and let her know about my dad. And so I have got some thank you notes made for, from the family of Dick Kendall. It's got a picture of him on the front, and, it's a way for me to send thank you notes to people who have helped and sent cards and condolences and all that. So I got out one of those cards, and I pulled out the chips, and there were maybe a dozen of them. And several of them were duplicates. There were like 3 9s and 3 11s and 2 10s and 4 12. I don't know. But I laid them out, and I thought, which one should I give to Ann? And I thought, I'll give her a 12. So I picked out a 12, and that's for 12 years sobriety. And my dad found these other chips that are, they're just sort of inspirational, and they have quotes on each side from AA, from the big book. And Daddy liked to hand those out to everybody. And they're just kind of like, knowing that, I'll show you mine. knowing that acceptance is the pathway to peace. That's one of the things that's a tenet of AA. Okay, where's mine? Come here, little coin. I'm looking in my purse, my coin purse. Okay, so it says on one side, nothing, absolutely nothing happens in God's world by mistake. That person, place, thing, or situation is exactly the way it is supposed to be at this moment. And you will not believe how pertinent that is. Okay, so you saw the sunrise on one side. So the other side looks like that. The sunrise side says, and acceptance is the answer to all my problems today. So that's very cool. And that's a very inspirational thing. And like I said, I've got one. I keep it in my purse. And I'm not in AA. Not that there's anything wrong with that. Okay. So I wrote up a note to Anne at Starbucks and said, my dad had 43 years of sobriety. He helped so many people, and this was his ministry, and I just feel like I've got these extra chips, and I'd like for you to have one, and also here's this inspirational chip, and I don't know how many years you've got, but here's a 12. I just picked it. So I sealed it up, put personal confidential, handed it to somebody in the drive-thru, and that was about 3 days ago, the last time I was here. So today, she was at the window, and she said, oh my gosh, thank you so much for that. She said, and I do have 12 years. And I went, you mean like more than 12 years? She said, 12 years and a couple of months. And I was like, oh my gosh. She's like, yeah, I just celebrated my 12th birthday in AA. And I gave her the 12. And she said, and also, she said, I've been in the back all day working. I just came up here to relieve somebody for their break. Tell me that's not a God thing, that I could be here to talk to you. And that she had 12 years. She has 12 years. And I really feel like my dad just, inspired me to do that. She said, you tell me this isn't a God thing. I'm like, yeah, I mean, I don't, I believe in something. It's not what a lot of people call God, but yeah, definitely. It was just so beautiful. We both just cried. She said, I couldn't believe it. She said, I just had tears running down my face. I told my sponsor about it. She said, it was just so wonderful. Thank you so much. And so it's so neat to be able to do something that my dad would do, or to do something on his behalf. It was actually something that my therapist was talking to me about the other day. So I was going to stop crying now and talk about what we were going to talk about. I'm running so late today that I didn't have time to write down my notes, and that I didn't even have time to get, on live at home. Oh my gosh, hold on a minute. I'm not ashamed of crying. I'm never ashamed of crying. And this is, like part happy, part sad, right? So, and I tell you what, my clients cry pretty often. So, if it makes you uncomfortable, I apologize. It doesn't make me uncomfortable. And I'm okay. All right, so yesterday, the lovely and talented Donna Beaumier, who lives somewhere in the lovely and talented Canada, she asked me if I know anything about dreams, and like psychically. And I do know a little bit about dreams, but I'm not like a dream interpreter. So I'm going to tell you what I do know and see if this is helpful to you. So I'm going to start with dreams that are visits from your late loved ones. So I think it's pretty common. From what I've been told, it's fairly common for people to have an experience of someone who has passed to come and visit them in a dream. And they always feel like that's really them. And sometimes they'll ask me, I dreamed about my grandma, and I'll say, well, what happened in the dream? And then, I can tell them if it's a visit or not. So I'll tell you the difference between a visit and just a dream that you're dreaming. Like your subconscious can pull in anybody for a dream, right? You can dream about Abraham Lincoln, right? So sometimes your dream about a loved one who has died is just a dream, and sometimes it's a visit. And here's the difference. It's how you feel when you wake up. So when you wake up and you go, oh, I dreamed about my grandmother, and oh, we were sitting in her garden and she was telling me about the flowers she planted, and oh, it was so wonderful to be with her again, and I woke up and I just felt so peaceful and happy. That's a visit. if you wake up and you go, well, I dreamed about my friend who died, and he was really mad about something, and I was getting mad with him, and we were like storming around and yelling at people, and it was just really weird, and then you wake up and you kind of feel kind of crappy. That's not a visit, okay? That's just you dreaming of stuff, okay? Something coming out of your subconscious. If you wake up and you don't feel great about having seen that person, or if they were unhappy in some way, then it's just a dream, okay? Okay, so that's one thing I know about dreams. I also have something that I call goodbye dreams. And this is when someone comes to me right after they pass or shortly after they pass, and they're healthy and happy, and they are in their heaven. Well, not long ago, one of my goodbye dreams was an older lady, a family member, who had been in a nursing home for several years, and she was not happy. There wasn't anything really wrong with her, except she was just old. She was just old, so she couldn't get around and incontinent and whatever. Then one day, after she'd been enrolled in hospice for several months, and one night I dreamed about her, and in the dream, she was healthy and happy, much younger than she was in life when she died, presumably when she died, and she was driving. And she had not driven in 30 years. She had given up driving long ago. And she was driving in her own car, which I don't even know what kind of car it was. And I was in the passenger seat. And I was like, what are you doing? Especially during this thing that's going on. You shouldn't be out and about, and you certainly shouldn't be driving. And she's like, oh yeah, I drive now. I can drive again. It's so great. I'm having such a great time driving, which is really funny because she never really liked to drive when she was alive. But she was loving driving her car. And so she was taking me somewhere, and she was taking me home from somewhere. So she dropped me off in my driveway, which was not my actual house, but she dropped me off, and I got out of the car, and I was like, well, it was great to see you. I hope you have fun. And she said, oh, yeah, we will. And this friend of hers, somebody I don't know, came up and got into the car, and they kind of hugged, like, hey, good to see you. And then they went, bye, and they drove off. And I was like, I'm standing there on my driveway going, wow, okay, good. So I woke up, and I thought, I recognize that. The first goodbye dream I had was when I was going into 8th grade. The summer I was going into 8th grade. I was in a play with a boy who was going into his senior year in high school. And no, we didn't date. But his name was James. And he was very gay because I was a hag since I was born. And he was my first real love. I loved him. His name was James. I loved him so much. He had silky, thick red hair, and he wore glasses, kind of boyish, so cute, and just so fun, kind of short. And I just loved him. He was funny, and we flirted, and one time we were in the theater, and it was after rehearsal or something, and he and I were on the stage, and there was some music playing. He just started dancing with me and dipped me and stuff. Oh, so romantic. He was so wonderful. And he was just cute and fun, and I loved him. Well, okay, so James graduated from high school, I think in 1977, which put him as a gay man at great risk. Because, so I graduated high school in 81, and those of us in my generation, like my age and maybe 10 years older, maybe a little bit more, that was when AIDS started. And so a lot of gay men were dead before they even knew what it was. They were sick and dying all through the 80s. I lost a lot of friends because, like I said, I'm a hag, so I have a lot of gay friends. And so James came to me in a dream when I was in my 20s. And I hadn't talked to him. I probably had not seen him since 8th grade. And I was in my 20s. And I dreamed about James. And this was before I knew I was psychic or anything. I dreamed about James, and he was in a really cool house somewhere. And which I've figured out, that this was his heaven. So I think the older lady that I knew who was in the car, I think her heaven was to go traveling. So anyway, I saw James in this really cool house, and he came out of a room, and I was standing there, and I said, "Hey, James, how are you?" And he looked so good. He was just like gorgeous, fit, healthy, and I hugged him, and I was like, "What are you doing here? I don't think you're." And he was like, "Oh yeah, this is where I am," and so when I woke up, I knew that he had died, and it was a couple of years before I was able to confirm that, but that was when it happened. And so that's for me what happens to me. You may have had some experience like that. If you've had a visit from a loved one in a dream, or if you've had a goodbye dream like that, or a dream about someone when they were in a coma or something like that, share it with us here. Share that story, because I'm fascinated by this, and I think this kind of thing happens to a lot of people. Okay, let's get on to other things about dreams, because this is what Donna was asking about. I think she was asking about this. What does it mean when you dream certain things? So, first of all, philosopher and psychiatrist or psychologist Carl Jung said that when you have a dream, let's see, was he the one who said, okay, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter the source. You can look it up if you want to. That when you have a dream, that everyone in the dream is you. So psychologically, and maybe psychically, when you wake up and you remember a dream, try to think of everybody in the dream is you, okay? Another thing is if you dream about a building, that building represents you as well. And this has been really helpful for me, because I've dreamed so much about like the house where I grew up, but it's been remodeled and expanded and much bigger. And in one dream it had a basement, and there was a grotto in the basement with a pool, and it was fabulous. And then upstairs there was, this and that. So if you're dreaming about a building, think about that. I so often dream about looking at houses, or being in someone's house, or being in my own house, where I find other rooms that I didn't know were there, or I find things in rooms or closets that I didn't remember having. And so think about that as being parts of yourself if you're in a building or a house. If you find new rooms, what does that say about you? Oh, there's something about myself that I don't even know about. If it's a really cool room, I remember once where I climbed up some stairs to a loft, and the whole floor was like cushions. It was like cushions, like you could lie on anywhere in the floor, and there was a big TV in there and some activity places. And so think about that. So somewhere inside me, there's this really cool playroom that has, a cushioned floor, that has a soft place to fall, right? Okay, so those are a couple of theories. Now, I sometimes will look up my own dreams. So I had a dream, this just happened, a few nights ago. I dreamed that I was, there were a couple things. One of them actually was the house where I grew up, and it had been remodeled and expanded, and it was beautiful, and it was owned by a friend of mine, which was pretty cool. So in that part of the dream, I was climbing up the stairs, but they were covered with this billowing fabric. And so I was climbing up these stairs, and I got to the top, and there was my friend who owned the building, the house. And I felt good about climbing up the stairs with these billowing fabrics. And in another part of the dream, same dream, my stepson had a big truck that was jacked up to like 12 feet or 15 feet in the air, and I had to climb to get into it. And I got up to the top, and it was great. And somebody was there to help me and greet me. So I looked up climbing dreams, and I found about 4 different sources that said dreams about climbing are about success in business and about reaching goals. If you're not in business, or you don't have a job or whatever, it's about reaching goals. And I happen to own a business, and I happen to have just found a special tool that I'm going to tell you about in a minute. And so twice in one dream, I climbed with not great difficulty, with a little bit, I like a challenge, and I made it to the top. And so that's supposed to mean that I will have success in business and or in meeting my goals, reaching my goals. So that's kind of a cool one. Let's see here. There was another thing I wanted to tell you about dreams. I'm going to pause here because, like I said, I didn't have time to write it down. There's so much about dreams that I wanted to tell you. Definitely Google things that stand out to you. That's what I did with the climbing, because I thought, well, there's 2 climbings in there. That's got to be significant. Anything you feel is significant, look it up and see what the supposed authorities tell you. You can also, look up books and so forth. So let me tell you about this tool that I've found. Pretty soon, within the next couple of weeks, we're going to move this group to another place. It's called the MoJo Room. And there's no ads, there's no distractions, there's nothing but the MoJo Room there. So here on Facebook, like, I can post something and you may not ever see it because of all the stuff that's there, the ads and the other people posting things, and whether you have notifications turned off or on, and if you even see the notifications, I miss so much of what people I follow are doing. And so we're going to move into the MoJo Room where it's just us, and it's going to be focused on people who, like you, who are a little intuitive, or who think that maybe they've got a little bit of psychic gift or some other kind of spiritual ability, people who read tarot cards or want to. Whether you want to make that into a business or not, that's what the MoJo Room is going to be about. We're going to be sharing those stories, and I'm going to be teaching and guiding and coaching you along the way. So it's a very, very cool deal. And I was telling you that as kind of a buffer while I remember the last thing that I was going to tell you about dreams. Oh, now I remember. Yeah. There was one other thing about dreams. Here it is. That's a little memory trick that I use sometimes. I do remember. It's a memory trick, see? Try that. If you can't remember something you were going to say, or something that you know, but you can't remember, try saying, oh, now I remember. Because that's what I just did, and it came back to me. The other thing about dreams that I wanted to tell you is that if you dream that you are someone else, you are not you, you are someone else. You look around and you're in a different time, in a different place, and you are someone else, male or female, doesn't matter. That is likely to be a memory of a past life. I have dreamed that I was a girl in 1191, somewhere in either the British Isles or northwestern Europe. I think it was in England, but I'm not sure. And I dreamed that I was this young woman, and I was not this young woman. It was 1191. I knew that. And in the dream, where I was this young woman, I had, I'm going to say she, because it's easier to talk about it that way. So she was about 16 or 17 years old, and she was some like maybe the daughter of a lord or something like that. She was in a well-to-do family, because where she was in a second floor room where she usually was taught by a clergyman. He was her tutor. And so for a young woman in 1191 to be in a second floor where she got taught, she was a wealthy person at that time. So she was in her room where she was taught, her student room, I guess, and she was waiting for her father, and she knew her father was very, very angry with her because she had been hanging out with this boy, and this young boy that she loved, but she was betrothed to an older, wealthy man. And as you probably know, in 1191, there were a lot of arranged marriages to help keep money in the family and so forth. So this young woman was betrothed to this older man that she thought was gross, and she was in love with this boy. And so she was waiting for her father to come and yell at her, and then she escaped through, it wasn't really a window, an opening. There was an opening in the wall upstairs in this room, and there was some sort of slide or some way that she climbed down and got out and ran away so that she didn't get in trouble at that moment. She knew her father was going to beat her. And so then when I woke up, I remembered more of the life. And this young woman did marry the older gross man, and she had an affair with the boy on the side as much as she could, but the older man beat her, and she had a bunch of children, and I think she died in childbirth. Like, she had 6 or 8 kids, you know. Anyway, so that's what I remembered when I woke up. So pay attention to those dreams. I had another dream in which I was an American Indian. I was some kind of Indian. I mean, in the dream, I was like, I'm riding bareback on a horse. Okay, well, that's not so unusual. I looked down, I was like, oh, I'm a man, you know, and it was like, this is interesting. And the things that happened in there, you know, we went up to a garrison and we were counting coup, and, you know, like, I threw a spear and a spear got thrown back at me and injured my wrist, which was kind of interesting because I have had a lot of trouble with this wrist in this life. So, you know, and I've been hypnotized to remember past lives, and I've remembered a bunch of them. But those are 2 dreams that I had that showed me past lives. So that's another thing that might be useful to you. If you dream that you are someone else, think about, oh, I think that was a past life. And then see if you can remember the rest of the life, not just that incident that you had in the dream. Okay? You see what I was saying? So take a moment when you wake up to go, ooh, I was someone else. What do I know about that? You know, like when I woke up and I went, that was 1191. You know, how do I know it's 1191? And that was many years ago. And I have since read the Knightsbridge trilogy by Ken Follett. Fabulous books. And one of them was set in the 12th century. And the things that I remembered from that life and dreamed about were very consistent with that time. And so it's just really interesting stuff. So that's the last thing I have to say about dreams. And I wasn't able to see your comments while I'm doing this because I'm sitting here in a parking lot. But I will come back and I'm going to look at your comments and maybe ask you some questions. I can see that Susan Weathers shared a dream. So definitely, if you have questions about a dream, I'll be happy to answer that here as well. Okay, stay tuned for more news about the MoJo Room coming soon to a computer or a phone near you, because yes, we have a phone app and you can participate fully on your phone. I'm so excited. But that's another story. That's a manifestation story, and I will save that for another time. Okay, I'm going to finish up. Thank you so much for being here. This was awesome, and thank you for hearing my story patiently through my tears. I loved that, and I hope that this helps you with dreams, Donna. Okay, until next time, remember, you are worthy in all ways and always. Push the button. Push the button.